Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 4, Chapter 25, the Characteristics of King Puranjan, text number 19. Nanarayanya Nanaranya Mriga Vrate Anabade Muni Vrate Ahutam Manyate Panto Yatra Kokila Kujite Nanaranya Mrigavrite Anabade Munivrite Ahutamanyate Panto Yatra Kokila Kujite. Various Aranya, forest. Mriga, animals. Vrite, with groups. Anabhade, the matter of non-violence. Muni Vrate, like the great sages. Ahutam, as if invited. Manyate, thinks. Partha, passenger. Yatra, where. Kokila, of cuckoos. Kujite, by the cooing. Translation. In such an atmosphere, even the animals of the forest become non-violent and non-envious like great sages. Consequently, the animals did not attack anyone. Over and above everything was the cooing of the cuckoos. Any passenger passing along that path was invited by that atmosphere to take rest in that nice garden. Repeat. In such an atmosphere, even the animals of the forest became non-violent and non-envious like great sages. Consequently, the animals did not attack anyone. Over and above everything was the cooing of the cuckoos. Any passenger passing along that path was invited by that atmosphere to take rest in that nice garden. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. A peaceful family with wife and children is compared to the peaceful atmosphere of the forest. Children are compared to non-violent animals. Sometimes, however, wives and children are called Swajanakya Dasu, burglars in the name of kinsmen. A man earns his livelihood with hard labor, and the result is that he is plundered by his wife and children exactly as a person in a forest is attacked by some thieves and burglars who take his money. Nevertheless, in family life, the turmoil of wife and children appear to be like the cooing of the cuckoos in the garden of family life. Being invited by such an atmosphere, the person who is passing through such a blissful family life desires to have his family with him at all costs. Translation. In such an atmosphere, even the animals of the forest become non-violent and non-envious like great sages. Consequently, the animals did not attack anyone. Over and above everything was the cooing of the cuckoos. Any passenger passing along that path was invited by that atmosphere to take rest in that nice garden. Magyanatamarandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshmitamina Tasmai Shivamve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manojishtam Stapatamina Bhutale Swayam Pakadamayam Dadanti Samvedantika Vanchakalpatruvya Sakrabhasandubhyaja Atidanam Bhavanevya Vaishnavya Namamba Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Naranya Mrigu Vrate Anabhada Muni Vrate Ahutam Manyate Panto Yatra Kokila Kujita. So this is continuing the example this analogy that Narada Muni is giving in order to preach to King Prachini Bahisat. Narada Muni, the great saintly, compassionate preacher, is giving an analogy of someone called King Puranjana. We mentioned yesterday, Jana means living entity. Jana means living entity. Pura means, you know? City. So, Puranjana means the living entity. Well, Puram means within this body or within this form. Jana means living entity. Thus everyone is Puranjana. Every living entity is Puranjana. So the example of King Puranjana is actually appropriate to us. It's not some far removed example, it's appropriate to us. And Narada Muni is continuing with this example, describing, comparing peaceful family life to an atmosphere in the forest, where the animals are non-violent and non-envious, like great sages. And therefore the animals do not attack anyone. And one has the beautiful cooing of the cuckoos. So this is compared to the children. It's supposed to be like the cooing cuckoos, very pleasing, kokila. And any passenger passing along that path will be invited by that atmosphere to take rest in that nice garden. So Prabhupada says a peaceful family with wife and children is compared to a peaceful atmosphere of the forest. And children are compared to non-violent animals. But then Prabhupada takes the opposite meaning. Sometimes, however, wives and children are compared to, or called, Swajanakya dasu, burglars in the name of kinsmen. So, of course, we know that there is Grihastha ashram and Grihamadi. So, this is referring to Grihamadi, or family life, where Krishna is not at the center. Bona fide Grihastha life, one puts Krishna in the center of one's relationship, and one can advance. The purpose of any ashram is to advance, be it brahmachari, be it grihastha, be it vanaprastha, sannyas. The purpose of any ashram is to advance. So in grihastha ashram also one advances or goes forward. But this is primarily referring to grihamadi. Children are compared, wives and children are compared to burglars in the name of kinsmen. A man earns his livelihood with hard labor. With the result, he is plundered by his wife and children, exactly as a person in the forest is attacked by some thieves and burglars who take his money. So there's a section in the Bhagavatam which describes that in the Grihamadi relationship, the wife is compared. This is in a materialistic relationship. The wife is compared to a tigress and to a witch. Both suck the blood. Both are interested in the blood. So in the daytime, the man works very hard and expends so much blood in terms of hard labor, but the wife extracts it. And at night time, this blood is turned into semen, and again the wife extracts it. So she's compared to a tigress, she's compared to a witch, Putana. Putana was the witch in the Krishna book, and her business was to suck the blood of young children. And Prabhupada said such people still exist in remote parts of northern India, and some of the more remote parts of India. You have people like this. So, the result is he's plundered by his wife and children exactly as a person in a forest is attacked by some thieves and burglars who take his money. And then, of course, children are also compared to the same. In a materialistic family, in a materialistic relationship, the children also take. And they are compared to thieves and burglars. But the materialist, he's happy being plundered. He's thinking, no, I would like to be plundered by my wife and by my children. Nevertheless, in family life, the turmoil of wife and children appear to be like the cooing of cuckoos in the garden of family life, because he's attached. So it's described when the materialistic grihastha hears the sound of the broken language of his children, then it is like the shackles that entrap him in the prison life in this prison of material life. It's like the ball and chain. If you try to escape with a ball and chain, it's very difficult. So this ball and chain are these attachments to materialistic wife and children. Being invited by such an atmosphere, the person who is passing through such a blissful family life desires to have his family life with him at all costs. So, in the material world, the material nature acts in such a way that what is very painful appears to be attractive. This makes it even more frightening. If something which is very miserable appears to be miserable, then that's not so bad. When something which is very miserable appears actually to be attractive, then that's even more dangerous. So by the potency of the illusionary energy of the Lord, it's an energy of Krishna. Krishna is all attractive. So his energies are also attractive. So his material energy has this ability to allure and attract people. So it's personified in attraction for the opposite sex, money, sense enjoyment. It's based around sense enjoyment, sense gratification. And it appears to be attractive. It appears from a certain angle of vision to be attractive. To have, in a materialistic situation, a nice husband, nice wife, nice children, material opulence. But, if one studies it a little bit more carefully, if one is objective and looks at it more carefully and begins to analyze it, you'll see that actually it's full of politics, diplomacy. Any type of materialistic relationship or activity is dukkhalayam. What does dukkhalayam mean? Dukkhalayam shashvatam. Dukkhalayam. It's a place of misery. But they try to make it sukhalayam. Sukhalayam means, yes, sukh and dukh. Sukh means happiness. Dukh means distress. So Bhagavad Gita clearly says this material, what is dukkhalayam and shashvatam, is a place of misery, and shashvatam is temporary. So if it's a place of misery and it's temporary, what intelligent person will want to hang around here? What intelligent person will develop attachments to stay and hang around here? No one. It's only vimudha, first-class fool, that will do that. Vimudha means first-class fool. So these first-class fools, they take what is dukkhalayam as sukhalayam. They take what is a place of misery as a place of happiness. They think it is happiness. So they take what is black as white. Exactly around the other way. There's that verse also in Bhagavad Gita, Nisha Sava Dehanam. Rupinder Prabhu quoted that verse when he came in. That for transcendentalists, what is night is daytime for materialists. And for materialists, what is daytime is night for transcendentalists. That's the opposite. So it's just like that. That they take black as white. Whatever we take, they take as the opposite. They take religion as irreligion. And they take irreligion as religion. Krishna consciousness is the highest religion. And they take it as some concocted cult or irreligion. We're trying to develop qualities of humility. So they look at humility and they say, no, this is a weakness of character. Exactly the opposite. They say, no, these are not favorable qualities. If you want something, you have to go and get it, and you have to be very strong and determined. And if it requires treading on people and exploiting people, then so be it. So, but we're not trying to cultivate those qualities. We're trying to cultivate humility. Aggressiveness as against peacefulness. We're trying to become very peaceful. Materialists are very aggressive. Materialists' goal is to become very wealthy. We're actually not interested in wealth. We're trying to keep our lifestyle very simple. We will accept whatever Krishna gives us, and that we will use in Krishna's service to preach. We're not actually interested, in amassing a lot of money. it's a disturbance. We'll use it in Christian service if it's given to us. But we prefer simple living. The materialists, that's all they're interested in. They want money. They want fame. They want to become famous in their different ways, either in the Winter Olympics or inventors or businessmen, whatever it may be. They want to leave their mark, their name in society. We're not actually interested in fame. Pratista, name and fame, we're not actually interested in that. We'd rather be humble servants of Krishna. We look at what they eat. What they eat, we're not interested in. And what we eat, they're not interested in. It's like completely opposites. What is night for them is day for us, and what is day for us is night for them. It's completely opposite. When we get together, we're interested in discussing Bhagavatam. When they get together, they're interested in talking about politics, cricket, sport, and politics, and sex. I guess sex would come first. That's what they're interested in, talking about sex. We have no interest in talking about sex. We have no interest in talking, except to condemn it. That would be our interest. And we have no interest in politics. It's a dubious arrangement for sense gratification. And we don't have any interest in sport. It's frivolous. It's sort of like a waste of time, kicking a ball around, stuff like this. So, but they're very interested in this. They get very excited about it. And then when we talk from Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita about the golden light, they fall asleep. They're not interested about this. They become restless. So you can see how what is day for them is night for us. It's the opposite. What is night for them is day for us. It's completely opposite. So how does this come about? How is it that they can see something which is actually black but think it's white? How can they see something which is miserable but think it's happiness? How is this? This is by the illusionary energy of the Lord. They're actually in illusion. As practicing devotees, we are not in illusion. We're seeing things through the eyes of Scripture. But they're actually in illusion. So someone who is in illusion sees things differently. They see things out of perspective. They're not able to see things properly for what they are. So due to the illusionary energy of the Lord, a materialist thinks that something which is miserable is actually full of happiness. Due to the illusionary energy of the Lord, materialists will think something which is very temporary to be eternal. And it's not a question of your opinion. There's an absolute opinion. And the absolute opinion is coming from Scripture. This material life is dukkhalaya. There's no question of sukhalaya. It's very miserable. It's very miserable. There's nothing really to enjoy here at all. There's nothing of interest in this material world at all. Our business is simply to develop our Krishna consciousness, to preach to others, and to go back to the spiritual world. But of course, for a devotee who's Krishna conscious, he doesn't mind where he is. He can actually exist in this material world, which is a place of misery. Prahlad Maharaj mentions in the 7th canto that because I'm always thinking of you, my Lord, then I don't feel the misery of material nature. But I do feel anxiety due to the suffering of other living beings. That's what I do feel. So due to this illusion energy, it's very, very powerful. And it covers the intelligence of living beings. So they're not able to see things properly. This is described in chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita. That lust, or the mode of passion, this illusionary energy covers one's intelligence, and one becomes bewildered. So in a bewildered condition, one will think that the wife who has a materialistic relationship with the husband, the children who are simply materialists, then that the husband who expends many gallons of blood trying to support his wife and children, he takes this as so-called pleasure. He's actually an illusion. Occasionally, sometimes materialists come to their senses and they understand. I remember there was one, when I first preached in Cape Town, there was one Indian gentleman. He had brought up his son in a very dutiful way, and now his son was taking him to court and suing him for the house. So you can see. And many times we get examples of one's own family members taking you to court, embezzling, stealing. Famous story is the Shah Jahan. Shah Jahan built Taj Mahal. He was very attached to his wife, overly attached. So this is an example of a typical Grihamadi, not Grihashtra, Grihamadi. He was living for sex pleasure. And he was so attached to his wife that when she died, he built this big monument. Shah Jahan built this massive monument, which was called the Taj Mahal. The Taj Mahal is not in itself really that impressive, but because it was built on the principles of lust, which is what this material world works on. People think it's great and they think it's romantic or something. So his son, he had many sons, but he had one son called Aurangzeb. And Aurangzeb, his one son, killed his brothers. One by one he killed them. He was a really nice person. Killed his sons, and then he put his father in prison. He was very kind. He didn't kill his father. He put his father in prison. But he put his father in a prison, and through the window, the father could see the Taj Mahal. And his father languished in prison for so many years and died a miserable death. This is Aurangzeb, a wonderful product of material life. He wanted to get on, so he got on. He eliminated one by one his competitors. He assassinated them one by one in a very gentlemanly way. And then he removed his father. Kamsa did the same. Kamsa was eliminating one by one his competitors and put his father, Ugrasena, in prison. These are typical examples of people who can get on in material life. If we look in the history book of materialists, when you study history, you're studying basically demons. You're studying the life and activities of first-class demons, like Stalin, like Hitler. These are first-class demons who secured their position by eliminating any type of person who may threaten their position. They killed them systematically. Darwin killed and eliminated so many millions of people. In Russia, there are so many cities previously were named after him: Stalin 1, Stalin 2, Stalin 3, Stalin 4, Stalin 5. Many, many towns were named after him. Materialists. So, and we see these are the people that get to control and manipulate because they're so aggressive. Whereas persons who have more godly qualities, they're more interested in staying in the background. So, these materialists, like Aurangzeb, he killed his father. They turn on their own family members. So these are the examples. So one's own children in a Grihamadi type of relationship, in a materialistic relationship based on sense gratification. The husband simply wants to exploit the wife for sex. This is in a materialistic relationship. And the wife is only interested in exploiting the husband. So she's thinking what she can get in terms of money. And the children are thinking what they can get from their parents in terms of sense gratification. And the parents are thinking what they can get from their children in terms of sense gratification. How the children will support them in old age. How the children will perpetuate their family. How the children will continue to run their business and they can retire. How the children are going to produce their children, and then the parents will have grandchildren who can surround them. It's all based on sense gratification. And anything based on sense gratification is limited, miserable, and pathetic. But in Krishna consciousness, of course, there is a relationship between man and woman, family life. It's called Grihastha Ashram. In Grihastha Ashram, Krishna is put in the center. And this is completely authorized and bona fide. And actually in the Kali Yuga, it's recommended as the safest path to make spiritual advancement. The example is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Grihastha. And most of his associates were also Grihastras. Ramananda Roy was Grihastra. Raghunath Das Goswami was Grihastra. Narottam Das Thakur was Grihastra. So, but of course they were perfect Grihastras. Perfect. We can aspire to become perfect Grihastras. But it's very difficult to try to become a perfect Brahmachari, perfect sannyasi, perfect Grihastra. A faultless Grihastra, faultless Brahmachari. Very difficult. We can aspire for this goal, try to work towards it. But the examples of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, even Gokishore Das Babaji Maharaj was Grihastra. His wife died when he was about 39 or 40, and he took Babaji Vesh. Prior to that, he was Grihastra. He was a businessman. He was a grain merchant. Narottam Das Thakur was Grihastra. Many. Rasikananda, Syamananda. Rasikananda had 2 wives actually. And, who's? Rasikananda. Jagannath Das Babaji. So these persons were very advanced, but and their examples are there to show us that we can also follow in that type of ashram and make spiritual advancement. Basic principle is whatever ashram or whatever one does, whatever varna, whatever ashram one is in, one should be detached. One should be detached. So, by force of circumstance, Bhaktivinoda Thakur married. He could have functioned not being married, but he happened to have a young child. His first wife died, so he had to marry again. Otherwise, he wouldn't have married. Was the point. Srila Prabhupada's marriage was organized by his father. So they were very detached. The basic point is to be detached. You can be single but very attached to what's around you. And you can be married but be detached. The basic point is not the ashram, it's whether you're vairagya, whether you're detached or not. So I should just say something briefly about Rasikananda. Rasikananda Prabhu, Rasikananda, it's his disappearance. Rasikananda was the disciple of Syamananda Pandit, great Vaishnava. There's a book about his life and many wonderful miracles he performed. He lived about 100 years after the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he preached very vigorously in East India. Many miracles he performed. On one occasion, he entered a village, a town, and there was a Muslim king. And the Muslim king derided Rasikananda and said, I will only accept this Rasikananda if he can perform some miracle. Otherwise, I will never accept Vaishnavism. So then this Muslim king said, there is an elephant, there's a mad elephant that's terrorizing this part of the country. If he can tame that mad elephant, then I will accept him. So Rasikananda came to that village with his party of men, and this mad elephant happened to come also, and everyone ran when this mad elephant came. Big bull elephant, Indian elephant. So Rasikananda preached to the elephant and said, you foolish living entity, you've accepted this body of an elephant, but don't you understand you're the servant of Krishna? And the elephant actually knelt down and offered his obeisances. And Rasikananda initiated the elephant and gave him the name Gopal. He actually initiated animals, Rasikananda. He was way on another platform. So he initiated this elephant, and it became called Gopal. And then he told this Gopal elephant, now you have to go back and preach to the other elephants. So when the Muslim king saw this, he also became the follower of Rasikananda. There's many, many stories like this, amazing stories. How Rasikananda preached to animals, converted Muslims, and established Krishna consciousness in Orissa, Bengal, Eastern India. Rasikananda. He was the disciple of Syamananda Pandit. Well, Shyamananda Pandit was the Siksha disciple of Jiva Goswami, so it was about 100 years, 50 to 100 years after Sri Chaitanya. Shyamananda Pandit, Srinivasacharya, and who's the third? Narottam were the next generation after the six Goswamis, and they became the Siksha disciples of Jiva Goswami. So Rasakananda became the disciple of Shyamananda. It's also a very interesting thing, if you read the biography of Rasakananda, Shyamananda Pandit told Rasakananda to accept disciples. And he was still living. And Rasakananda had many disciples, and he told them to accept disciples. So there were 3 generations of gurus, all accepting disciples. It's not as we understand it, at least as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta presented it, that the spiritual master, if he's still present, then one should not be so, one should not accept disciples physically in the presence of the spiritual master. But in the case of Rasakananda, Shyamananda, and Rasakananda's disciples, it was different. They were very powerful preachers. And also it is the appearance day, disappearance of Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, of course, is the Siksha Guru of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He is not the Diksha Guru, he is the Siksha Guru. We put more emphasis on Siksha than Diksha. Siksha means instructions. Diksha means formal initiation. Very advanced Vaishnava. He lived to the age of about 134, 135. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur took his advice and direction. So therefore, he became, in our disciple succession written by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Jagannath Das Babaji is the Siksha Guru, or the spiritual master of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I forget who actually was the spiritual master of Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, but I know that he took Babaji Vaish from Krishna Das Babaji of Govardhan Hill, whose disciple was Bhagwat Das Babaji, who was the spiritual master of Gokishore Das Babaji Maharaj. So these persons are all very bona fide. So Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj's main contribution, well, of course he contributed in many ways, but he inspired Bhaktivinoda Thakur to find the Yogapith, the appearance place of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There are stories also of Jagannath Das Babaji. When he was older, he had to be carried around in a sling by his disciple. He had a very strong disciple. What was his name? Biharila. That's right. And there are stories of Jagannath Das Babaji being an invalid, having to be carried. But on hearing kirtan, sometimes he would become overwhelmed in Krishna consciousness and join in the kirtan and start dancing for many hours, falling on the ground in ecstasy. Although he at that time was over 100 years old, and ordinarily he couldn't walk. So there are stories like this. And when Bhaktivinoda Thakur finally found Yogapith, the appearance place of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one of the ways he confirmed it was by taking Jagannath Das Babaji there. And when Jagannath Das Babaji was taken there, he started dancing again in ecstasy. But actually, physically, he couldn't walk. It was like Krishnadas Kaviraj. He wrote Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he was blind. His hand was shaking. He was practically blind. He was about to leave the body, and yet he writes this amazing biography of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life. Materially, it doesn't seem to make sense. So Jagannath Das Babaji was able to do things that dance that materially didn't make sense. But of course, within the spiritual realm transcends the material realm. So Jagannath Das Babaji was a most illustrious and important personality in our life. His picture is on our altar in all our ISKCON temples. Biharila is his servant. One time I was talking with Puri Maharaj elder, who himself is 100 years old. living in Jagannath Puri now. And he knew Biharila. He knew him. It's quite amazing, when we start talking about these past personalities and then you meet someone who knows them. He knew Biharila. Of course, he himself is 100. No. There's been many Krishnadas Babaji's. Therefore I say Krishnadas Babaji of Govardhan. It's different. Very famous Babaji that lived at Govardhan, who is cited as being an authority. But he lived in the 1800s. Krishnadas Babaji, you were talking Kinchana Krishnadas Babaji, was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's disciple, who was a friend of Srila Prabhupada. And they had a very nice relationship. Yes, that's something completely different. The name Krishnadas is very popular. So these are great, illustrious personalities. We can pray to them to help us in our bhakti. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any questions?